Thank you, Harold. Are we ready there in the back? Yes? It's time to begin. Good morning, Seal Beach, on this beautiful day. It's sunny, there's no rain, and what a glorious place Seal Beach is to be, always, but especially in the sunshine. And welcome to our Namaste friends, and good morning to our new friends. It's so great to have you all here. And good morning to our friends on Zoom and Facebooks, and welcome all you beautiful beloveds of the divine. Please greet each other. Say good morning to familiar faces. Say good morning to new faces. Thank you. That was wonderful. Such beautiful greetings going on. And I'm feeling something wonderful coming on. Do you feel it too? Yes, Harold.
Something wonderful is happening to me right here, right now. Something wonderful, oh, something wonderful is happening to me right here, right now. I can feel it in my body. I can feel it in my body. I can feel it in my soul. I can feel it in my heart, and it won't let go. Oh, something wonderful. Oh, something wonderful is happening to me right here, right now. Oh, something wonderful. Something wonderful is happening to me right here, right now. I can feel it in my body. I can feel it in my body. Oh, I can feel it in my soul. I can feel it in my heart, and it won't let go. Something wonderful, something wonderful is happening to me right here, right now. In fact, I gotta say it again. Hey, something wonderful. Something wonderful is happening to me right here, right now. All this love. Something wonderful is happening to me right here, right now. You got it. Something wonderful is contagious. Something wonderful is outrageous. It's happening to me right here, right now. One more time. Yeah, something wonderful. Something wonderful is happening to me right here, right now. Big finish. Something wonderful.
That was inspiring. Thank you, Harold. So now we have our slide on the exploration vision. And if you would like to say it with me, it's coming up very soon because we are explorers and we had explorer groups and we were together looking at new programs for us. And the slide on the exploration vision is ready. Okay, and if you will say with me, through mindful and respectful exploration, we are creating a healthier foundation that supports and engages a whole beloved community equipped to launch new strategies for a thriving spiritual center. Yes, thriving spiritual center. Everybody say it with me. Thriving spiritual center. And give it an applause. Okay. And now it's time for introductions. Today, we have the monthly theme, the power of vulnerability. We'll be focusing on that all this month. And the message is letting go and letting in. Say that with me. Letting go and letting in. How did that feel? Pretty good, right? Yeah, okay. Just imagine what it's going to be like to hear the service. Reverend Bobby Becker is very analytical and a spiritual leader and filled with love. So let's give a round of applause and welcome for Reverend Bobby. Yay! Reverend Bobby. Round of applause. Okay, good. And you know, Harold Payne, he's already got us going today. Oh my gosh. Welcome, Harold. He is creative, he is spontaneous, and he is talented, and you know, it's special every time he walks in our door. Thank you, Harold. And let's see, oh, there you are. Practitioner Janice is giving us our sacred message. Now, every part of the service is sacred, but that's the sacred part of the service. And she is loving, and she like runs the joint, and she volunteers and does everything. If you want, you know, to find out what's going on, you talk to this beautiful woman. Welcome, Janice. I'm Lorraine Urbina. I'm on the team of hosts. We volunteer. We have really a lot of fun, can you tell, when we're here? Okay, so we have a lot of announcements this morning. So Marjorie is going to do all the announcements and then take us into sacred time. Welcome, Marjorie! Yay, Marjorie!
Well, before I start announcements, I'd like to do a Reader's Digest of what has happened over the last year and a half. In November of 2021, we signed a letter of call for Reverend John De Palma to be our interim minister. And he came for the first 6 months for 2 Sundays a month, did workshops on both those Sundays. We had 10 workshops, and through that we came to the conclusion we were not ready. We did not have the resources to candidate. And so we decided we would collaborate. And we started collaborating with Namaste, where Reverend Bobby Becker is their senior minister. And that collaboration team was about 12 from Seal Beach and another 12 from Namaste. The first thing we did was a values workshop to make sure we had the same values, because Reverend John was saying we don't want to collaborate with anybody that doesn't have the same values. Well, we turned out to have exactly the same values. The culminating activity of that collaboration was the Adventure in Faith, where practitioners from Seal Beach and practitioners from Namaste got together, developed the curriculum. We had 74 people participating in small groups for 4 weeks on a book study called Adventures in Faith. We started with a joint meeting. We ended with a joint celebration and a potluck. And those joint meetings, raise your hand if you were at one of those joint meetings. Were they wonderful? Yes. Oh! So we decided it was time to take the next step, and the next step was to explore the potential of unifying with Namaste. And for the last 2.5 months, we have 8 teams that have been meeting weekly. I mean, we've got dedicated people. There are over 40 people participating in that, over 20 from us and over 20 from Namaste. Diligent, caring people. And what the leadership, the exploration leadership team has asked for all the teams to tell the leadership team whether there are any showstoppers that would bar us from unifying. We don't have all the results yet, but it's looking very positive. But we can't say so yet because we don't have all the information. We're also looking to see that this would be a decision to actually unify and a decision to bring on a transitional spiritual leader that can oversee the spiritual side of this unification if we go ahead and do it. So that's the brief. Then let's go into the announcements, because most of the announcements are about this upcoming decision. So the first one up is we have a weekly dialogue on unification. It's a Zoom meeting. It's available. You have to sign up on an Eventbrite. There's no fee for it, but once you sign up, you will then get the Zoom link to get to the meeting. It's open to Namaste and Seal Beach. We're doing more and more together, which is just wonderful. And all the questions, there are no dumb questions, there are no right questions, there are no wrong, any question, comment, suggestion, whatever you have running in your mind, you can bring it to the Zoom meeting, and we'll do the best to answer all of your questions and straighten out any misconceptions people might have. So that's Wednesday, the 5th, that's this Wednesday, then the following Wednesday on the 12th, and the following Wednesday on the 19th. So if you can't make it this Wednesday, we got 2 more Wednesdays that you can make where you can ask those questions that have been running around in your head, if you will. Now, on a different vein, next Sunday is Easter, and Seal Beach has this tradition of Easter bonnets. And so we're going to have an Easter parade next week, and if you have an Easter bonnet, be it creative, funny, happy, pretty, whatever it is, bring it. We're going to have a fun celebration on the 9th. Then, Then on the 16th, we have a very important meeting. I told you we're gathering all this information to make a decision as to whether we want to collaborate. The exploration leadership team will do a town hall meeting right here in Seal Beach on the 16th. You'll have another opportunity. If you haven't all your questions answered, there'll be more opportunities there. You'll get more information. This is one meeting. It will be available on Zoom. I encourage everyone to be here to find out where we are going and what's coming up next, and get all of your answers that you need. The exploration leadership team, when they get the recommendation, they will send it to the board. And the board at Namaste and the leadership council here. And we will then, the board and the leadership council will decide whether we want to support this or not. And then chances are it will be an affirmation of what has been going on. We've had so many people involved in this that it's coming together, I call organically and naturally. And so the boards will then take it to their individual centers. Namaste will vote at Namaste, Seal Beach will vote at Seal Beach. Only members can vote, and it will be a vote for unification and the transitional spiritual leader. So it's a full April. Go to the Zoom meetings. Make sure you're here on the 16th, and double make sure you're here on the 23rd. We are living in exciting times. We have an opportunity to give birth to a new entity that has a foundation that they can work from, that will allow them to be more vibrant and thrive. And I'm just so looking forward to seeing that all come together. I could hardly wait. So, with all that excitement, now let's take a breath and just breathe in and allow yourself to just center as we come in to recognize that loving presence that is the truth of who each of us is, and allow ourselves to just center into that space of peace and calm as we prepare to listen to Janice and Bobby, Reverend Bobby.
Every month, the home office for the Centers for Spiritual Living in Golden, Colorado, suggests a monthly theme for local centers to focus on. For April, as we've mentioned, the theme is the power of vulnerability. With this in mind, I went searching for some speaking material, and I found a website called The Very Well Mind, and it had an interesting article by Laura Porter entitled Why Vulnerability in Relationships is So Important. And I'd like to share a few highlights of the key concepts this morning. The article stated that vulnerability occurs when a person willingly takes the risk to reveal their emotions and weaknesses. And it stated that emotional openness is essential in healthy relationships as it paves the way for deeper understanding and evokes empathy necessary for healthy and lifelong relationships. However, I also think it is completely natural for us to want to guard ourselves and our feelings as a form of protection. But if we don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable to our friends and family and our partners, they won't be able to really get to know us. And if we're too closed off, the bonds we have with our loved ones will be less fulfilling. Being vulnerable to our loved ones is a key. It keeps us honest with each other and ourselves, and it breaks down walls and reduces the potential for miscommunication and allows us just to be wholly ourselves. And like many things in life, being vulnerable doesn't always come naturally. In fact, it can be very difficult to express ourselves in an honest way with someone without the fear of rejection or judgment. Laura Porter's article recommended 4 discussion openers that I'd like to just summarize. I found them very interesting. One was to start the conversation by just discussing vulnerability itself. She suggests that if we explain how we are feeling and why we might be struggling, it might start the conversation off in a way that helps us to connect. Discuss a specific fear. We all have fears, and there is value in taking time to just talk with someone who will listen without judgment about one specific fear. It can make that one fear seem a little smaller. Another idea is to discuss a specific recent experience. This can open up channels and vulnerability to discuss something that's recently happened. It could be a run-in with a stranger that felt a little confusing, or something that we're dealing with at work. And just simply start with the facts and how the incident had an impact on us. And the experience doesn't have to be negative. It could be something that brought great joy. And finally, she suggested that we discuss a specific goal. And I think this idea is actually my favorite. By sharing a goal with a loved one, it's an easy way to connect, especially if we discuss why the goal is important and how we intend to go about meeting the goal. And in the process, we might gain a cheerleader and someone that might actually help us to achieve it. When I think of the power of vulnerability, it brings to mind the unification efforts that are currently underway at Seal Beach and Namaste Centers for Spiritual Living. Over the past several months, our communities have been doing our best to remain open to the possibilities that might come from unification. The unification exploration process has required all of us to be vulnerable and honest and transparent, and this hasn't always been easy, but has most certainly been rich and engaging. And like many of you, I'm really enjoying this exploration journey, and I'm truly proud to be taking part of this innovative process. M. Scott Peck said, "There can be no vulnerability without risk. There can be no community without vulnerability. There can be no peace and ultimately no life without community." As we get ready to enjoy Reverend Bobby's message, I am filled with gratitude for everyone that has taken part in today's service, either in person or online. It takes all of our collective energy to form this amazing, precious spiritual center. And so it is.
Let the peaceful waters tumble down my soul. Let me live in this moment and watch it all unfold. And let this joyful feeling come from deep inside and lift my spirit closer to the light. Oh, I'm letting go. Oh, I'm letting go. I'm gonna roll with the tide, surrender to the highs and lows, to the pull of the moon in the ebb and flow. I am lost in the stillness, the silent prayer, just the movements of breath in a heartbeat there. Letting go. Let the peaceful waters tumble down my soul. Let me live in this moment and watch it all unfold. Let this joyful feeling come from deep inside. Oh, and lift my spirit closer to the light. Oh, I'm letting go. Oh, I'm letting go. I am letting go. Oh, I'm letting go. Letting go.
Perfect song. Good morning. Boy, did we get ourselves mixed up in something, right? Is it this? I'll just turn it off while I'm not using it. And I say we got ourselves mixed into something as we've decided to see what it's like to play in the same sandbox together, right? See if we can treat each other with extraordinary respect, and also enjoy some of the challenges that come from coming together in community. Community is never about it's all joy. It isn't. We come together in spiritual community for reasons that might be connection, it's home, but ultimately the bigger purpose of spiritual community is to grow, and to grow into a knowing of who we truly are. If you could put up that first slide for me. Emma Curtis Hopkins, I call her the Queen of Denial. She was the one that sort of created that idea of denying first within prayer, which is not true. Ergo, Queen of Denial. She said, that we thought that sickness was something sent by God, and truth is a healing principle, not a sickening principle. I have had one interesting week. And whenever you hear me from this moment forward say interesting, I'm not sure what it is yet. Like I know it's really good, and then some of it I haven't really kind of absorbed at a point of understanding, but I know that I will, so I call it interesting because I really don't like to commit to anything with respect to what I'm learning. Because I think I know what I'm learning, and then I go, oh yeah, it's not that at all. Now, how many of you have a story that you tell regularly, maybe, even if it's once a year, and you've told that story in the same way since the beginning? Yeah. What's interesting in this movement is one of the things that we do. I do it too, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But what happens often is we tell a story over and over and over. It places us in a particular place within the story, and oftentimes the story either puts us as a hero or a victim in the story, right? And in many cases, what we do here in these rooms across the world is we challenge stories. And we challenge them because the more that we look at that we don't really remember things accurately. We don't. Our brain isn't designed to collect data and remember it in a factual way. It collects factual data and it interprets it. And we interpret our stories based upon what we've gone through, sort of the subtotal of our collective experiences and our interpretations of them. Now, this last week I found out some information that could have potentially had great effect on my family. And it was disturbing at first, and I was really upset about it. And as I started to go into a little bit of the story of how this affected me particularly and personally, fortunately, I was paying attention to what I was doing. And in the beginning, I needed to kind of take some space and to go off and actually just be in it and really see how I felt about it and where did I put myself in it. One of the things we first did, my spouse and I, is we decided to go sit with a counselor and talk through the situation to see what it really meant. Now, what did I just do? I identified that quite possibly the story I'm carrying isn't completely accurate. Because probably not. And so through the week, as we've been dealing with this, what ended up popping up throughout the whole week was Alice in Wonderland. And there's a quote Alice in Wonderland was written by Lewis Carroll, and he actually wrote 4 different books. And when he originally wrote the first book, it was for a little girl named Alice Liddell. And she was a real character in his life. She was one of 3 daughters at a Christian university that he was at in Oxford. At the time, it was Christian. And his real name, Lewis Carroll, was Charles Dobson. He wrote under the pen name Lewis Carroll for whatever reason. He did not want that to be known as the author. And he was a mathematician, and interestingly, he had a speech impediment. He had a special relationship with Alice Liddell, and she was the middle child. And during the time, and he was a single man, so to have a special relationship with little girls at this day and age would seem a little odd, wouldn't it? And we'd be a little cautious about it. But what's interesting is he loved these little girls. We'll go with that for today. And he told them stories. And one day he took them out on a boat, and he told the story of the adventures of Alice in Wonderland. And Alice, little Alice, begged him to write the stories. He was rather creative. And what was interesting that made him really creative was that he suffered from a rare neurological disorder that causes strange hallucinations and effects about the size of virtual objects. It can make the person that's dealing with it feel bigger or smaller than they actually are. And if you've read Alice in Wonderland, it's a key component of the story itself. Now, what's important to know about the story, so I'm going to just kind of refer to this story because it has a lot of amazing logical, he weaves in logic and metaphor throughout the story. In the second book, which is Alice Through the Looking Glass, he's creating a story that when you actually read through Alice in the Looking Glass, it is a pretty scary book. A scary book in the sense that he's trying to illustrate and or represent the life of children and how oftentimes adults can be quite frightening. I still think that. And if you look at some of the characters in Alice in the Looking Glass or Alice and Her Adventures in Wonderland, those characters are a little bit crazy, would you say? But what's interesting about it is they're not that different from a lot of us and how we behave and how we operate in the world when we're afraid or we, in essence, live from a particular story. In one part of the book, Alice is talking to the queen, and it's the Red Queen. And she says, and Alice laughed, "There's no use trying," she said. "One can't believe impossible things." "I dare say you haven't had much practice," said the queen. "When I was your age, I always did it for half an hour a day. Why, sometimes I believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast." What's interesting, here's this queen, this adult. Can you imagine an adult saying that? No. And here's Alice, which was based on the real character, who was described, Alice Liddell, as feisty and challenging and stubborn and very confident within herself. And that character was represented throughout the 4 books of Alice in Wonderland. Stories have such power in our lives. And if our stories don't change, transcend us, help transcend us, if our stories stay the same, that doesn't mean that there aren't facts in stories that are true. But it's not always true, the story that we tell. And if we look at how we tell a story, and we look at how we position ourselves in that story, it tells a lot about what we believe about ourselves. Lewis Carroll sort of saw Alice as living in a world of adults that were peculiar and odd. And here he was, an adult himself. And he tried to represent that. But what we know is you can't take anything in the world, no matter what is expressed, at face value. None of our stories can be assumed true at face value. It's why curiosity is so important when we hear stories and or when we even tell our own stories. You see, because we're an imperfect witness to truth. Just feel that a little bit. Whenever I place myself in a position of being victim to anything in this world, then I am telling a story that somehow I have no power. And I would say truly those that are probably the only victims in our world, truly, at least let's just look, I'm just going to be very simplistic about it, are children and the elderly. The elderly that are being cared for, that are in assisted living or wherever they might be, where they rely on others for the most simplest of care. Our memories inform our present, but memories are but interpretation of facts. And we become actually weaker when there are stories. Let me back up. Whenever there's a situation or a story we tell, and something in the story tells us to avoid a particular circumstance, event, situation, and or person, we actually are training our brain to weaken. There's been neurological studies done on the fact that if we avoid things that we're afraid of, that our brain continues to hardwire that way. And therefore, the places in our lives that we struggle the most are often the places that we are scared of the most. The Queen of Hearts, a fictional character and the main antagonistic in all the books of Alice in Wonderland. She's childish, she's foul-tempered, and even Lewis Carroll, the author, describes her as a blind fury. She is quick to give death sentences at even the slightest of offenses. This is interesting. I'm using Alice in Wonderland. I have never liked the book. I know. And for years, I've never really looked at why I don't like the book. How many of you said, I don't know why I don't like it, I just don't like it? Exactly. That's where I was at. And this week, Alice in Wonderland showed up so many times, I thought, all right, universe, let's just look at this. The Queen of Heart rules over Wonderland, and she's a tyrant, and she's violent, and she's authoritative, and she's dominant. She likes to play croquet with live flamingos and hedgehogs as mallets and balls, but only when she wins and by her own rules. And she constantly orders the beheading of people when something isn't to her liking. She has her own idea about how trials should be conducted and is feared by everyone in Wonderland. She has no patience, and she is explosive. Well, that's my mom. No wonder. At least that's the story I used to have about my mother. And it's true that my mother was definitely just like the Queen of Hearts in many ways. It was really difficult in my household to figure out really what was right or wrong, but it was really based on what she believed was right or wrong, which could change at any moment. So it was interesting as I was reading it this week, I was going, my goodness, I lived with the Queen of Hearts. This makes perfect sense. My mom's rage and her actions made no sense to me as a child. And I remember reading Alice in Wonderland. It was part of the reading when you were a child, and I really disliked it. I was afraid in it. And then it just became, well, I just don't like it. But the real idea is I carried that idea of my mother being the Queen of Hearts into my adulthood. And when you read the story of Alice, you see how much power this woman has. What's interesting is Alice stands up to her throughout the whole book. She's never afraid of her. She continues to challenge her. And when she says things that Alice doesn't agree with, Alice says, well, that's not true, or that's not right, or I don't agree with that. And I find that to be so interesting because that is not what I learned from my Queen of Hearts. But Alice did not grow up with a Queen of Hearts. She met the Queen of Hearts. At some point in my young adult years, without realizing it, about the Queen of Hearts, but realizing that the only way that I could move into my young adult years, or I should say move through my young adult years, into really having some sense of self was I had to stand up to the idea of what I believed about her. Because no matter what I believed about my mother at the time, it was how I placed myself in that story. And I continually told the story of being the victim to my mother, even into my adult years. And it wasn't until I finally faced my Queen of Hearts that the story changed. When I started to look at really what was my mother's journey, when I started to remember diagnoses of mental health as I was growing up, and I started to understand more about where she was coming from, that I realized that I was no longer sort of one of the court members of the Queen of Hearts. The story started to change. And I started to become the hero in my story rather than a victim of off with her head, which was what I was always afraid of. Even though she didn't have that same power as an adult. One of the things that I found through this whole process with respect to facing the Queen of Hearts was the fact that the thing that we often avoid is the very thing we must run to. Can you put up the Alice Through the Looking Glass, the second slide? You see, that's the effect of living backwards, the Queen said kindly. It always makes one a little giddy at first. Living backwards, Alice repeated in great astonishment. I never heard of such a thing. But there's one great advantage in it, and that's that one's memory works both ways. Well, isn't that interesting? How does our memory work both ways? She says, I'm sure mine only works one way, Alice remarked. I can't remember things before they happen. It's a poor sort of memory that only works backward, the Queen said. Stories change because we come to understand new information. Our memories change from the future because we find out more and more about the truth of who we are and the truth of the situation. The story can change. And the story must change. As we're going through this unification, any of our fears that come up are all coming up because of stories we have. Stories we have about who am I, stories we have about who you are, and what this situation or experience means. And we will always, always interpret facts based on who we are. We see the world not as it is, but how we are. That doesn't mean there's not injustice in the world. Let's just put that aside for just a moment. But the point is, any story that we have where we're a victim is seeing the world from where we are. Period. Because there are no victims unless we choose to accept victimhood. And by the way, with victimhood, you've heard the phrase, hurt people hurt people. Victims hurt people unconsciously because we're living from the story that somehow we are a victim of something to which we're not. Would you leave that quote up for me, Dale? Thanks. Actually, go to the next quote, Dale. Alice goes on in the story with respect to the fact that we often think, so just imagine for a moment, don't read the quote. Okay, don't read it. Look right here. It's like a shiny object, right? Ever since I learned to read, you put something in front of me and I'm going to read it. Sometimes we think that we're the only normal person in the room. Yeah, you're laughing. Yeah. Normal is a myth. There's no such thing, and there's no way we know more than anyone else. We may be a little more conscious sometimes, but there is no way that anyone is more normal than anyone else. So Alice, through the looking glass, looks up and sees the Cheshire Cat. And she says, "But I don't want to go among mad people." "Oh, you can't help this," said the cat. "We're all mad here. I'm mad, you're mad." "How do you know I'm mad?" said Alice. "You must be, or you wouldn't have come here." You get where I'm going with this? That we're here on this planet when we think about the lessons that we're learning and what we're being challenged by. Even this very beautiful process of potentially unifying. So I'm going to ask a question in the room. How many people have said or believe it's already done? It's not, by the way. It's not. You know why it's not done? Someone tell me, why is it not done?
It's a process.
There's one. We haven't done it yet. Too many pieces and parts. I'm looking for a specific action that says, thank you. We haven't voted. And when I say we, I don't mean me. It is not up to me. It is not up to John. It is not up to the boards. It is up to us. And it doesn't happen until we say, yes. That is the power of creation. And if we say, well, it's already done and people already if we do that, then what we've done is we've removed ourselves and the power that we have in the world. It's up to us to step in with our voice and create a new story of a new creation. And that takes everyone. And it's not done. And it's not done, and it's not done. And by the way, even after the vote, it's still not done. Because the story doesn't end. I'm going to close with a book that I would suggest you pick up. Sarah Polley is the director, producer for a movie that's just come out called Talking Women. I haven't seen it yet. I'm waiting to be in the right mood. Stories like that, I need to be in a particular frame of mind. She wrote a book called Running to the Danger, and she contemplates her own stories ranging from stage fright, childhood neglect, sexual assault, to high-risk childbirth, to endangerment of a host of reasons. And she says in writing this book, these are the most dangerous stories of my life. The ones I've avoided, the ones I haven't told, the ones that have kept me awake on countless nights. As these stories found echoes in my adult life and then went another, better way than they did in childhood, they became lighter and easier to carry. The reason she wrote the book is she had a traumatic brain injury. She had a concussion where the symptoms were so severe they lasted for 3 years. That is not unusual, by the way. And so a doctor told her, doctors before the final doctor told her, if you're light sensitive, stay in the dark. If noise sensitive, stay away from noise. If exercise hurts, stay away from exercise. And this doctor said, run to the danger. The only way, he said, because we have to retrain your mind has been trained to be sensitive to the very things that will help you heal. Do you get me? So for 3 years that she had those migraines and nausea, extreme light noise sensitivity, the specialist came together with her with other specialists to recover, and she retrained her mind by charging towards the very activities that triggered her symptoms of headache, fatigue, sensitivity, you name it. Sometimes when we listen to our body and it's malfunctioning, we are interpreting what it's saying, but because of the stories we carry, we are listening to the wrong message. That's why sometimes we go, well, wait, what do I do here? And that's why I always encourage people, do not try to figure things out by yourself. It's the worst thing you can do, because you're going to figure it out from the story you're living with, which is why it's good to talk to a practitioner who will help you dismantle the story. Polley, in her book, she talks about this. Rather than living in a protective crouch, she decided to run to the danger, and she decided to do it with all the stories that were keeping her debilitated. In my own life, I ran towards the Queen. And the relationship that I ended up with my mother at the very end was reconciled. She did not change. I did. I did. I no longer was afraid. I ran to the monster that I created out of her and continued to live with into my adulthood. I went after things that made me nervous. I did that my entire adult life as I tried and worked and struggled sometimes with the stories that I carried with me into my adult life. And any time I am afraid of something, with exception of skydiving, maybe not this life, I ran towards it. I ran towards it and pulled the curtain away to see what was truly there. We must learn, would you put up the last slide, Dale? We must learn to run into the discomfort instead of away from it. The things we avoid get bigger over time, and we have trained our brain to be in the world we've created. We have indeed created the world we're in. We had a lot of help, no doubt. Parents, teachers, folks, friends, and all of that. But that does not give us license to sit in victimhood unless we want to accept that. So in our life, if we think we haven't been heard, what do? Do we continue to affirm that we are not heard, or do we make sure that we're heard? Exactly. If we feel we haven't been seen, do we continue to be invisible? No. We become visible for ourselves. We run towards the things that scare us. We speak out. We challenge old beliefs. And through this process, what would it be like to challenge the beliefs that I have about myself? Because guaranteed, if you pay a little bit of attention through this, you will find that how you view this, how you view others, how we view ourselves and others is informed by the stories that we refuse to let go, that we refuse to open up to a greater truth. This week, Janine and I sat with a therapist and talked about the information that we found. And the first thing she said to me was, "Now, Bobby, don't get so catastrophic." And then she helped us walk through to exactly what was going on and helped us with a path. So I lived with that potentially catastrophic story for about 24 hours. That's it. And that's as far as I'm willing to go anymore. Speak our truth. Be seen, be heard. Look at our stories. It's up to us. I'm going to offer up a prayer. So as we come together in this beautiful sacred space, it is sacred because we're here. It is sacred because as divine beings, everywhere we stand, the ground is sacred. The earth is sacred. All of creation is sacred. All events, situations, and circumstances are sacred. And we hold these as everything is God, spirit, universal mind. We know that we're one with it. We anchor in that belief right here and right now. This week, now, right this moment, any story I have about another or myself, I open up to a much bigger story and allow it to continue to transcend and transform. I hold this as the one very thing as humans that we are able to do. We are able to change it. We are able to change the world through the stories we tell. So the stories we begin now to explore and tell are ones that we are the hero. We are not victims, no longer. I anchor this truth, knowing this is truth about each person in this community, the community of Namaste, and the communities, every spiritual community on our planet. Holding this truth, I say thank you. And so it is. Amen. Thank you.
Sometimes adults can be frightening. And the innocence of curiosity of children can be enlightening. From them we can learn that we can find our glory by clearing our throats and making ourselves the hero rather than the victim of our story. Will it bring us down or lift us up? It's up to us. I'm letting God be God in me as I am. I'm letting God be God in me as I am. I surrender. Go in my heart and in my soul. I'm letting God be God in me as I am. There's a time to turn it over There's a time to let it go when you feel your back is aching from that extra heavy load. We are well equipped to handle whatever comes our way. Got a built-in system we can tap into every day, letting God be God in me. As I am, I'm letting God be God in me. As I am, I surrender. I let go in my heart and in my soul. I'm letting God be God in me as I am. Pressure on the outside, struggles everywhere, futures in foreclosure, tension in the air. Ain't no doubt about it, we got some work to do, but it's all on the inside if you're looking for the truth. I'm letting God be God in me as I am. I'm letting God be God in me as I am. On the inside there's a way when I'm weary from the fray to lay my burden, lay it down and turn it all around. I'm letting God be God in me as I am. I'm letting God be God in me as I am. I'm glad that you're inspired, but imagine your hands are getting tired. So I'm letting God be God in me and you. Thank you. Thank you for the inspiration.
Harold, you did it again. Thank you, Harold. And thank you, Janice, for her wonderful practitioner. And Reverend Bobby, thank you, helping us let in and transform and become our own heroes. Thank you, Reverend Bobby. And now is time for our donation, talking about our offering and our blessing. And what a great way to tell a story about being your own hero than to give to this wonderful center who feeds us this beautiful support and spiritual nourishment. You can be a hero. We have a donation stations the old-fashioned way. Checks and cash can go right in there. If you want to give credit card, you just fill out the forms. We have also online giving, my personal favorite. And there's PayPal and there's text to give. So many ways to be a hero. And now will the practitioners please stand? These practitioners are ready, willing, and able to help you dismantle your stories, affirm your intentions, be your own hero, and they're ours. They're yours. You can see them today or anytime you want. We also have phone numbers. You can dial them up. Thank you. And there are children. Oh, wonderful. And Harold's going to play us children's music. And these children, well, they have the same lessons that we have. Big church and little church. Harold.
It's a small world after all. It's a small world after all. It's a small world after all. It's a small, small world. It's a world of laughter, a world of tears, a world of hope, and a world of fear. There's so much we can share
Hello. Thank you, Harold. I cannot wait to listen later. Good morning, everyone. Wow, what an amazing crowd. Yes, yes, yes. Hi. Okay, so we lost some friends on our way up here. We lost some friends. That's okay. That's okay. Most of us are up here. So, vulnerability and kids. Yeah. Spend a little bit of time on that. Decided to scratch that, mostly. And decided that where is there vulnerability? And I was thinking that there's vulnerability in friendships. And I see that absolutely nobody is listening to me because there is an amazing show going on right here, and that's okay. So you know what? I'm just not even going to talk. It's not worth it. But we talked about friendship, Maddie and I did, and we talked about what we want in our friendships, how we want to show up in our friendships, and then we all made these adorable little bunnies. And Chloe, can you hold up your bunny real high? All right. And then Maddie and I wrote on our bunnies' tummies that Chloe has over there what we want to bring to our friendships. And it was mostly love and kindness and respect. And so, but we had a wonderful time over there. We had some new friends, and that is it for us. And I heard there was some incredible magic going on over here, so I can't wait to check it out later. Have a wonderful Sunday, everyone.
Thank you, Wenda. It is always great to hear from the children's program. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Reverend Bobby, you ready to do the benediction? Mm-hmm.
All right.
Look, you guys just stand. If you're able to, please stand. If this is your first time, I'm sorry. But we do love doing this, at least I do. I'm not sure I'm paying attention to, some of that. So if you could put up our benediction slide. We know that this life is amazing, right? There is gifts all around. And we get to take a time right now to speak something that has incredible power if we wish. Because it's all by consent, no matter what. So I'm going to ask you a question. What is happening right now?
Something wonderful is happening
To me right here. Oh, see, I said it. Called.
This thing called life.
You guys sound committed. I'm in. Where is it?
Life is in my mind. Life is in my body.
And?
Life is in all that I do.
All that I do? Oh my goodness. So if life is in all that I do, I should be paying attention, right? So what am I with that?
I give thanks for it.
Hold on. Do you?
Yes.
We do now. And then what?
And I accept it.
How?
Just the way that it is.
And?
Just the way that it is not.
Hold on a second, because if you really do have gratitude for life, you're going to prove it to yourself right now. So I want you to imagine something you're really grateful for, whether it's being together in this moment, whether it's family. These adorable little creatures right here, just love them. As we think of our daughter, and think of something so, just anything, no matter what's going on with your life right now, what are you grateful for? Exactly. Now, feel it. Feel it. Let it start to build in your body, because gratitude is felt. It is not something I just say. It is felt. So feel it moving up through your body. Allow it to fill you up. And on the count of 3, you get to demonstrate the most powerful spiritual practice there is. Are you ready? Yes. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, life.
Thank you, life. And now, it's time for our peace song. Harold, let us have our peace song together.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. Each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. We can reach up, we can reach out, we can show this world what we're all about. We can do anything we put our minds to. We can be anything we want to be. Oh, oh, we must believe we can share the dream. Hey, we can reach up, we can reach out, we can show this world what we're all about. We can do anything we put our minds to. We can be anything we want to be. Hey, hey, we must believe we can share the dream.